To see how this side works, I don't hear any squeaking or rasping yet anyhow. Well now, as I said, there was extra soldiers in Trujillo, and they were made their headquarters in the schoolhouse right next door to where we were. So I invited them over to have a gospel meeting. I explained to them a few things, invited them to come over. I told them there'd be no seating accommodations. We had just arrived, and that if they wished they could stand or sit on the floor on their hunkers just as they wished. So what do you think? They came right enough, and there we packed about 50 into that room, just standing room and nothing more. And we preached Christ crucified to them. They seemed to, well, enjoy it at least. It was a diversion from sitting around all day as they had nothing to do. And of course we supplied them with plenty of good gospel tracts. And well, pretty soon then the time came around when the new government took over without any difficulties, without any fighting. So we lost our congregation because these men, although they were in the army of Korea, they weren't, well, professional soldiers. But however, sometimes they do the work of professionals. So some of them went over to the barracks when they took the barracks over, and then some of them went to their own homes, and some of them went elsewhere. So everything seemed to be settling down. Now there we were in Trujillo, this young man, we'll call him Alan, his wife, and his 2 children. And there we were now settling down in this big house, and I might say that down below it was still what they call the Café Colon. I explained that there they sold soft drinks and such like. Well now, we tried to get settled down to business too. So we had, well, a big territory to work on, and we did not know much about it, and we all would go off on the train in the morning and go to a camp and get off the train there and distribute tracts in that camp. And then when the train came back again that same day to come back to Trujillo, well, we would, of course, return on the train. So we spent some considerable time in that kind of work. Then we took turnabout of going out one week and my companion another week. And while my companion was out, I was busy in Trujillo going from door to door and offering them gospel tracts and the gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We got quite a supply of those in from the Scripture Gift Mission in London, and they were a great help in the work. And of course there was Cristales there, the Carib Indian village. I spent much time there. And then, of course, when my time came to go out on the line, I would go out and go the length of La Ceiba and spend a night there with Brother Celaya and have a meeting there, of course. And then during the day I had time enough to do visiting and distributing in that city. And then, of course, there was another place by the name of Soniguera, and that was midway between La Ceiba and Trujillo. So we heard that there might be interest there because Brother Solai had visited it often. He would go out after making his candies and take about 50 pounds with him and sell them in the local stores there. And then, of course, he distributed gospel tracts, and in that way there was a little interest got up. And he had been speaking to quite a few, so I would go out there and spend a little time there. And then, of course, other times I would go out to Olanchito. Now, Olanchito was a difficult place in some ways. For this reason, when you got there, it was in the middle of the day, and it was very, very hot. And I generally went around after getting off the train, having something to eat, of course, beforehand, and visiting, and then we found those that were really interested in the gospel. So we tried to make arrangements and find a place where we could preach the gospel. We prayed much about that, and well, the Lord opened up the way for that. But however, I might say before that we spent some considerable time looking over the place, the various places. For instance, there was Sabah, and Sabah, we went out there in one trip, the two of us, and we distributed tracts, and there wasn't much time. So we stayed over that night, but we found an old vacant house, and we inquired about that, if we could rent that, so that we could have some shelter over our heads during the night. And we did that. Well, we had our hammocks with us. We generally carried our hammocks. In that way, you can sling them up anywhere, even if you can't find a place, maybe there'd be a tree or something similar. So we put our hammocks up in that house, and well, settling down for a night when my companion shouted, and he jumped out of his hammock and he landed on the floor. Well, I didn't know what was wrong. I don't suppose he did very much, know much more than I did. But however, well, you see, we had alacrans there, that's scorpions. And sometimes they would fall down from the ceiling. Now, there was really no ceiling in the house, there was just the roof. And that was made out of palm leaves, and it was thatched with palm leaves in such a way that, well, it kept the rain out pretty good, although when it began to get old, that is about 3 or 4 years, it began to leak, and you'd get a shower of rain on you during the night and would have to shift to another place many times. I had to do that. But then this particular night, it was something more solid than rain. It came down with quite a bump on his hammock, and as soon as he heard that and felt the hammock shake, he jumped out. Well, of course, it was an alacran. Well, that wouldn't prove to be a very good bed companion, you may be sure of that. And he didn't relish the possibility of having to sleep there with that companion, so out he got, and he was wise to, because, well, those things can, well, they can sting. I should say they can. I have had experience with that before, reaching down to get a piece of wood to put on the fire, and you had to be very careful. Well, this day I wasn't careful enough. That scorpion just got me and just give me an injection right under my fingernail. And that was just like getting a carpet attack and hammering it in with a hammer. That's what it just felt like. So as soon as I got that, the first thing Well, naturally, you just put their finger in your mouth, anything like that. You always run to your mouth like a child. Put your finger in your mouth and blow on it. Well, I did that, and for about, might say for over 5 minutes, I ran about in a circle in the floor just with that awful pain, because it is an awful pain. And then after that, you have to spend some considerable time with the pain, not just so severe, but it takes it quite a time to go away. Well, some of those scorpions are worse than others. There are special kinds that are very dangerous. Indeed, they have been known to kill people with the sting and the injection which they give you. And other times, your whole mouth gets numb, and you can hardly speak at times, and you can hardly move your mouth. And you have all those inconveniences to put up with once in a while. Well, however, we spent the night there, and of course we're always careful in the morning because you never know where you're going to put your foot down. And we made sure that there was something there below us so that we could get our foot down. Well, another thing you have to watch is you got your hammock properly tied. If you don't, well, you're going to fall out, or at least the hammock is going to fall, and you're going to fall with it. I had that experience before now, and well, it just brings you down with a bump, and it all depends on what's down below you. If it's level ground, you're not too bad, but it gives you quite a bump, and you rub yourself for quite a while afterwards. Well, you soon learn to be very careful and get your hammock tied up in such a way that it won't come down. You must make sure that the rope isn't rotten, or where you have it tied is very secure too. You learn to see to all of those things in time after you have a little experience in such things. Well, now, that was our life for some time. And as time went on, we were able to, well, in Trujillo, we were able to have meetings or start meetings. And of course, I've been visiting the people quite a lot, and at last we tried and got some wood and made some benches. That's one thing that the pioneer has got to do, He's got no one else to do it, and he's got to fix up some place for the people to sit when you invite them to come. So we were able to get some wood and fix them up, and and it was better than nothing anyhow. So we invited the people to come. Right enough, a few did come. And we started then to sing. Well, I'm no singer, but, my wife could sing well. And this other young man could sing well, and his wife, so in that way, are able to attract people. And there was benches filled through time. I invited them to come back the next Sunday again when we would have another meeting. And of course, then during the week we went out to the various places around, and we had quite a time. Now there was interest was being shown in some of these banana camps. You see, we'd go out there with the Gospels or Gospel tracts and visit each home and leave one there and try, if possible, to get into conversation with whoever lived in that house. And soon they got to know us as we came around. And of course, there was no difficulty in finding a place because these barracons that the company put up for them, there was always a space down below. I think we have described that in one of our talks before. And the people lived upstairs, up about 10 or 12 feet on the top of these posts that had been put in, so that if storm would come up, rain would come on, there'd be plenty of space underneath for the water to lie. And many times that has happened too. And sometimes I've known the people to have to get up onto the very roof of the house, get up on the rafters and take off some of the zinc and get up that way because the water was getting so high. And in that way they were able to save themselves until a rescue boat would come along and pick them up, which at times was very necessary. Well, however, we had that down below to have the meetings. There was no light, there was no electric light, so we got a Coleman gasoline lamp, and we would light that, and that was quite an attraction in itself because there was no light or anything in those camps in those days. So as soon as they would see the light, that would attract their attention, and we would start in to sing. And pretty soon the people would gather around, and they would come, and they had own places made to sit themselves there, made benches, and sometimes they sat around in those places down below the house where there was good shade and good shelter. So we had a place to hold the meetings in without very much trouble.